Today we'll be taking my subscribers' money
into mods for his SQ5.
But before we talk about the $12,000 of mods we'll be installing in this SQ5, let's get you up to speed on it. That just ripped my entire face off. 2.90. 2.90. This 2018 Audi SQ5 is the definition of speed, luxury, and beauty. And we got things flying around in the back, of course, because it's a grocery getter. This car is made to go from your house to the grocery store and back. It does that very well. And the great part is it comes with a 3.0 V6 turbocharged motor, and in stock form it makes 350 horsepower, 369 foot-pound-feet of torque. Amazing. This car is already stage 2. Yes, that's right. It's already pushing over 450 horsepower on stage 2 software from 034 Motorsport, and it absolutely wakes up the car. This is how it should have come from the factory. With 450 horsepower, and it just gets you to the grocery store just a tad bit quicker. The owner also realized that he needs to improve the handling capabilities. This being a boat of an SUV, the handling isn't so great, so he opted in for some 034 sway bars, front and rear, paired them up with some end links. He's got the subframe inserts, diff inserts, and transmission insert to make sure that all the chassis is as stiff as possible. And stage 2 definitely doesn't disappoint. It puts you in your seat, runs through the gears like no tomorrow, pulls strong all the way to 6,500 RPM. It gives you everything that you want. Now this SQ5 is even more souped up than mine is. It's got air ride from the factory. It's got digital display on the windshield. It's got all the goodies, bits and pieces that you could possibly get on a prestige model. Not only does the tune wake up the car, you're also able to cut some crazy performance even with the stock turbo. And well, that brings us here. I know it's Washington and it rains constantly, but I'm still gonna try to get a 0 to 60 for you guys to compare as we go from 450 horsepower to 750 horsepower. Woo! Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow. Dude, that's with me and you in the car.
I know.
Very impressive. On pump, that's very fast. It spun like crazy.
Yeah, it did.
Not bad. I just have a short 24 hours to transform this Audi SQ5 and take it from 450 horsepower to over 750 horsepower to the crank. We want to absolutely smash that 750 horsepower mark. So in order to do that, you call TTE and you get yourself a TTE A10 hybrid turbo. It's a stock turbo that was modified and it puts down some serious horsepower. While we're there, we're also going to upgrade the OEM diverter valve, as well as upgrade the map sensors to some 4-bar map sensors from 034 Motorsport to make sure that the ECU reads the proper boost. Of course, you can have all the air in the world with a big turbo, but if you don't have the fueling, you won't make the power. This is why we're going to upgrade to these RS6 injectors. They're going to provide a lot more fuel for the direct injection system, but they're also useless without upgrading the high pressure fuel pump. And this little piston right here from 034 is the solution. We're going to upgrade the little tiny piston in a stock high pressure fuel pump, and this will give us all the fuel that we could possibly need. We're planning to run E60 to E85, so Fuelit sent us their Bluetooth gauge to make sure that we can use their app and monitor our ethanol content levels. That way we don't have any issues when we're mixing ethanol. While we're there, we're going to change out the OEM spark plugs to make sure that we don't have any issues. This way we can have air, fuel, and spark all all taken care of and crossed off the list. Now to cool this insane hybrid turbo, this is what we're gonna be installing. We're gonna be taking off the inferior APR unit and installing this bad boy right here. It's gonna provide all the cooling you could possibly need. You can have all the power in the world, but without braking power, you won't be able to stop in time. This is why we're gonna be upgrading to these 034 rotors. They're also gonna provide us with 7 pounds of weight reduction per corner of the vehicle, reducing our rotational mass. But we're also gonna pair them up with some Hawks 5.0 brake pads to minimize brake dust and also increase our braking capacity. Now, the goodies on the table don't stop there, they keep going. We're also gonna be upgrading to these 034 street density engine mounts. Not only do they eliminate the hydraulic fluid that's in the stock OEM mounts, they're an OEM plus replacement, and they're also made out of 60 Durameter rubber, making sure that not only do you get direct power transfer down to the ground, you also don't have to ever worry about them failing. Speaking of handling, this last item on the list is a 034 front strut brace. It's a beautiful piece of billet. As you can see, it's not just gonna improve the engine bay looks, but it's also gonna stiffen up the front part of the chassis to make sure that the car gets better steering as well as better handling on corners. Today we've partnered up with my friends at 034 Motorsport using their parts and their catalog, so make sure you go check out all the links in the description. Now that we've done the walkthrough of the parts that we're installing, let's get to actually installing them. Now that the bumper was moved to the side, I unbolted the 4 bolts holding the intercooler hardware to the crash bar, as well as loosening the clamps to hold the charge pipes to the intercooler itself. Crash bar comes off, and just like that, the APR intercooler is removed. In goes in the higher flowing Integrated Engineering FDS intercooler. It's simply held in place by 2 upper screws that secure to the OEM radiator housing. This is actually where I ran into an issue with the fitment of the smaller diameter APR charge pipes, but we have a solution for that in just a little bit, so make sure you keep watching. For now, we're gonna secure everything in place, and here's the IE intercooler seated properly. Well guys, with the intercooler installed, that still leaves us with a slew of parts to put on this car, but first, we need to tear everything out. And now that the clock was running against me, I got straight to work. Intake comes out first, then the turbo inlet, which surprisingly was only held on by 1 bolt.
Literally cannot make this stuff up. Like, there's no bottom bolt right here.
This caused some damage to the stock turbo, which I'll show you guys in just a little bit here.
I'm so happy that we're taking this out right now. We're gonna get this done right.
The turbo inlet was hanging on, like barely hanging on for life.
That is not good.
Well, luckily we're gonna fix it for you. After a quick phone call with the owner of the SQ5, I got to removing the OEM turbo, and that just took about 30 minutes to remove the turbo oil and coolant lines as well as the hardware that holds it in place. It was loose, but I still couldn't pull the turbo out by hand, so instead of hitting it with my purse, I used a little leverage with the pry bar, and the OEM turbo comes right out.
Miss it?
Now that I had a little bit more room to work with, I continued working on the passenger side. Once I had the coil packs removed, I could pull the spark plugs and just zip them out with my 1/4-inch impact and just checked every single one of them to make sure that they were at least in decent condition. And I did notice something in cylinder 1, but we were just replacing them either way, so it didn't matter. In go the new spark plugs. Once the spark plugs were done, it's time to remove the high pressure fuel pump as we have to modify that as well. And funny enough, this is exactly when my GoPro broke as well. So I guess no more GoPro, going back to iPhone. Wow. The coolant from this broken water pump feeding coolant all the way up to here, dripping down into the injector. This is something that I personally was hoping to never see. But remember how I said this build was going to take me 24 hours?
I have a short 24 hours to transform this Audi SQ5 and take it.
Unfortunately, things don't always go to plan, so make sure you keep watching all the way till the end to find out what exactly went wrong as we dive down the rabbit hole of maintenance.
Coolant went up these vacuum lines, and you can see all this gunk right here.
Yeah.
That's how you know it failed.
B9 injectors can certainly become a pain, especially since they've never been removed before, but of course with some elbow grease, anything is possible. I simply just had to lube up the new O-rings on the new injectors, and in they go just the same way as they came out. Now the fuel rail goes right on top of the injectors and the O-rings get sealed properly. I was trying to be very careful to make sure that I don't damage the O-rings, even though I lubed them up, but now all I had to do was push the fuel rail down. All that secured that fuel rail in place are a bunch of T30s, so once I had those secured, we moved on to the high pressure fuel pump.
This high pressure fuel pump piston upgrade is an easy and cost-effective way to get over 30% more flow over the factory piston.
The reason why I mounted it on the wall is because I was hoping that would make it easier.
And the install is honestly quite easy. Once I had the OEM high pressure fuel pump housing in the vise, I was able to remove the locking color with a special tool from the housing and then remove the spring assembly as well. Now you do have to make sure that you're wearing eye protection, but make sure you don't use sunglasses.
Gotta make sure that you have your safety glasses on. Is good enough? Yeah.
Now I did have to break the press fit of the spring retainer, and we compressed the assembly in the vise until we heard that little retaining click break free from the piston.
Yes.
That's what we need.
That's what we wanted. Perfect.
Once I transferred over the spring from the stock piston to the new assembly, I placed a new spring washer over the spring, and this is where things get interesting. To install the retaining clips, you must compress the spring up to slide them in. So instead of using a valve seat tool, I just used a couple of wrenches on one side to give me enough space between the vise and the spring to be able to actually pop those retaining clips in. Now that it was installed, you just got to put the assembly back into the pump body, and the high pressure fuel pump goes back into the car.
Piston is installed.
They don't come out that easy, by the way.
We have the high pressure fuel pump installed. We got the injectors installed, the new spark plugs. But before we throw the turbo in, I want to show you guys a side-by-side comparison what the TT810 looks like compared to the stock turbo. First of all, looking at the inlet, you can clearly see this one is tiny compared to the 66mm intake on the TT810. That's bored out. That's as big as it could possibly get. The turbo engineers clearly did a very nice job. And looking at stock turbo, I wanted to show you guys there's a little bit of a damage right here. If you look at the wheels, like that's insane. Probably be related to the fact that the turbo inlet wasn't on all the way, so it was sucking things in. This is actually the perfect time to put a TT810 in. One, you get a brand new turbo and it's definitely gonna flow a lot more. And if you flip them around here, take a look at the exhaust, you can clearly see the massive size difference and just a huge difference in how much is gonna flow. Definitely provide a lot more air for the engine to have so we can make, what's it called? More power.
Are you serious, dude? Nah, come on. It's 100 episodes. Yeah, dude, go ahead. More power, baby! Yeah!
Now that the fueling is all complete and you guys know what turbo we're putting in the car, let's get to actually installing it.
In the presence of a
That was cool. Not really.
Once I had my toolbox accident cleaned up, I had to use a 10mm triple square bit to remove the 4 bolts securing the 2 factory strut supports, and there's a couple more 10mm triple square bits to remove the bolts from the main factory strut brace. With the factory bars removed, I am now ready to install the billet strut brace. The transfer strut brace will go in first, then the short support bars will go in next, connecting the towers to the firewall, and then I'm going to use the 034 provided hardware to secure it all together. You could really install the fuel Bluetooth sensor anywhere you would like, as long as it's right before the high pressure fuel pump. This way you can be reading the proper ethanol content before it actually reaches your high pressure fuel pump system. Now that I have my lines cut, I could actually connect them to the Bluetooth gauge and then secure it from both sides using some 5/16 hose clamps. All there's left to do is plug in the fuel Bluetooth module and then just connect it to the negative and positive terminals. Earlier on, you guys saw me install the Integrated Engineering FDS intercooler, and I did run into a little problem with the APR charge pipes, primarily because of the fact that they are simply too small and don't fit properly over the inlet and outlet of the intercooler.
Dude, this crap won't fit. Not gonna work.
So instead, we're going to be upgrading to these insane Integrated Engineering charge pipes. They are a much larger inner diameter at 67 millimeters. They're also a full hot side and cold side charge pipe replacement from the turbo all the way to the throttle body. While we're in there, since we already are replacing the charge pipes, we might as well replace the water pump, the thermostat, and also a couple of valve solenoid to fix that coolant leak that we found.
Coolant went up these vacuum lines, and you can see all this gunk right here.
Yeah.
That's how you know it failed.
Here is basically what happens. The vacuum is supplied by the vacuum pump while the engine is running. Now that vacuum controls a lot of things in these B9, including these two valve solenoids right here. Those two valve solenoids control the water pump and the bypass valve. And what happens when the water pump fails is that coolant then travels into the vacuum system, flowing through those vacuum tubes into both solenoids, ruining those solenoids and sometimes even making it all the way to the turbo wastegate and causing all sorts of issues. It's got to get replaced.
That's how you know the water pump failed, and then, you know, while we're there, we might as well replace the gaskets and replace the thermostat.
You got soft hands, brother.
Coolant went up these vacuum lines, and you can see all this gunk right here.
Yeah.
That's how you know it failed.
Shows me a gasket and he's like, huh, I don't think this goes anywhere. Looks around, a couple pipes, things, and then goes, useless. Throws it away. Now look. Wasn't so useless, was it?
Where is it?
With the 034 rotors on the car and looking amazing, it was time to get the engine mounts done. The way that I do these engine mounts may seem a little unconventional, but that seems the easiest way to me and the best time saver. First thing I'm going to do is loosen the subframe. I loosened the subframe bolts as much as I possibly could without actually pulling them out, so there'll be a few more threads still in there. This way, later on when I have to put the subframe back on, I could easily just zip them up. I now have space to loosen the main bolts which go through the engine mount into the engine block itself.
Big boy.
Dog gotta eat.
Yep. It's a big one.
Now I just have to pick the engine up as high as I possibly can to give me as much space between the subframe and the engine itself to pull the engine mounts out. Additionally, there are two more 10mm triple square bolts that hold the engine mounts in place, and once those are removed, the engine mounts come right out.
Holy crap. That was the easiest removal I've ever had.
Now my cameraman pried on the subframe as much as we possibly could, and that gave me all the space in the world to pull these out without any struggle whatsoever.
Yep, keep going.
Yep. Oh.
Hey, there you go.
I'd like to quickly recap the damage that was done to the OEM engine mounts. First of all, you can clearly see that the hydraulic fluid has completely leaked out of them. Additionally, you can see there's slight tearing on the actual engine mounts, meaning they were completely gone and probably clunking at this point quite bad. These 034 ones are not going to have any issues whatsoever. They're solid, they're never going to tear, and they're never going to have the same issues.
Yep, like that. Hey, yo.
Dirty Dave now.
That's freaking dirty as hell, man. Perfect time we were replacing it, huh?
Yeah, I think we want fresh oil in the turbo, not that right there. Anytime you change a turbo, perfect time for an oil change.
Now that we had fresh oil for the engine and the turbo, it was time to flash the SQ5 with 034's Stage 3 Plus TT810 file on E60, which should give us close to around 770 horsepower to the crank. And now that we have our ECU and TCU flash, let's jump into the SQ5 and find out how fast we can cut a 0 to 60.
Hear some of this turbo noise. That's great. Yeah. Wow, that puts you in your seats.
It's got so much torque down low. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Usually it's just nothing,
And
spools up and goes.
All of it, right.
This has it before.
It ramps up pretty well, right?
And at 3.5, you're basically at full boost and you have all the torque right there, and it pulls that hard all the way to the top. Expect an SUV to have just crazy turbo noises coming from it, right?
Wow. That pulls so hard too. I understand why SQ5 is fast, but this thing being on air suspension, we got it lowered, we got it stiff all the way around, right? With the engine mounts, the front strut brace, the sway bars, and on air suspension with all that power. In my car, it feels like it's kind of bouncy, you know what I mean? You kind of feel everything in the road. This car feels like it's just gliding across the road.
It's like the Cadillac.
It picks up so good. Here, we're gonna give ourselves a first spin pull. You ready?
Yeah.
Wow. That is so torquey. This is the ultimate SUV. This is the ultimate daily driver.
Facts.
I think that all the money that we put into this car, all that time, all that labor, was absolutely worth every single dollar and every single minute of my time. Like, this thing has been absolutely transformed from front to back.
now that we've driven the car, right, we got a feel for it, how it feels, but we haven't launched it yet, and we want to test the 0 to 60 at least, right? Let's find out what she does.
Wow.
Dude. Wow, that's insanely fast. This thing put the power down, no problem. Yes. 2 guys in the car. We got equipment in the car. What do we do on the draggy?
0 to 60 in 3.12 seconds.
3.12. Full weight with 2 people in the car and video equipment. 3.12 seconds 0 to 60. That is so fast. Like, bro, that is supercar fast. This thing on pump gas or E60 pulls like a freight train all the way to the top. This turbo does not care about how much weight it's hauling. It just wants to go. All right, we'll do one more 0 to 60. Full weight, 2 people in the car. 3.07. Wow. Basically 3 seconds flat with 2 of us in the car. You gotta get out. You do not expect these things to become that fast just with a few basically minor bolt-ons. I guess, well, turbo is major, but it's something that you could bolt on. You can take it off at any time, right? It's reversible. You bolt it on, you get the power, and you take it off whenever you want to if that's the case. Now that we got the other guy out of the car and it's just me, a little bit less weight, let's see if we can cut a better 0 to 60 and see if we can do any better. That just ripped my entire face off. 2.90. 2.90 on air suspension. This thing is insane. Wow. This is an SUV. It should not be going this fast. 2.9 seconds 0 to 60. I knew we could do better.
One more for science. Again, 2.9.
1.65 in the 60 foot and a 2.90 seconds 0 to 60. Just mind blowing how fast these SUVs are. This is the ultimate grocery getter.
Well guys, this SUV has been absolutely transformed by the $12,000 that we've invested into it. It is now close to 800 horsepower. It absolutely rips. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe. The next one's the best one. I'll see you guys again soon.